Snow and more snow. That's what we'll be expecting this week here in Provo, Utah. I'm Michael Meteor with your weather. Now we're going live to our top investigative reporter, Elsie Evans at Intermountain Utah Valley Hospital. Elsie?
Thanks, Michael, for that wonderful weather report. As he said, I'm here at Utah Valley Hospital to report on Henrietta Lacks. In 1950, she presented at Johns Hopkins Hospital seeking help in removing what she thought was a knot in her stomach. That knot turned out to be cervical cancer. This cancer was aggressive, and even with radium treatment, it metastasized and covered her whole body, and she unfortunately passed away from the cancer. Before she passed, however, her doctor removed part of those cells from her cervix to test them and use them for scientific research. At the time, he did not inform Henrietta that he was going to do that, and after her death, he never told her family that her cells were being used. 50 years later, Rebecca Skloot, the author of The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, approached her family to learn more about Henrietta and her cells, the HeLa cells, and the conflict behind all of that. HeLa cells are the most commonly used cell line in scientific research history. They have been to space, and they were used in discovering the polio vaccine. Despite these cells being so famous and doing so much good for science and for healthcare, her family was, again, never informed of them and have received no benefits. This brings up the issue about informed consent. Should Henrietta have been informed? Should her family have been informed? Although at the time neither was done, the doctors weren't violating any laws. In 1950, common rule was what was being used, which stated that doctors should inform the patients about their intentions with their cells or their tissues. However, it was not mandatory. Because of this, doctors typically felt like it wasn't necessary because they didn't want to risk patients stunting scientific research growth or being too picky about where their cells or tissues end up. Today, the common rule still applies, although it is still not a law. Informed consent is much more important, though, today. As is commonly seen in doctors' offices, there are consent forms that you can sign, which is the most common way to use it because it's still not very informative and the doctors still don't have to be very upfront. This poses an ethical dilemma because should patients be more aware? A more modern example of this dilemma occurred when John Moore, a patient at the UCLA Medical Center, took his case to court. He had cancer similar to Henrietta, and his doctor also removed his cells without consent. Those cells profited that doctor over $3 billion, while John got nothing. When he discovered this issue, he wanted to be compensated, and he wanted to change the common rule. He wanted to make it so every patient avoids situations like his. He wanted to make it so everyone receives informed consent, and that doctors have to be transparent with their intentions. Because in John's mind, his body and tissues and cells are all his, and what's done with them directly relates to him. However, the judge did not rule in John's favor. He ruled in the favor of his physician, saying that when John's cells left his body, similar to when Henrietta's cells left her body, they no longer belong to them. They belong to science, and they belong to the physicians who were going to take those cells, HeLa cells and John cells, Mo cells, take those and use them to benefit everyone and to further science. The question that I want to pose to you all now is this really a dilemma? Should informed consent be given to every patient in every situation? Or are the doctors on the right side of this issue? Are they right in saying that science is science and the patient is separated from that? It's up to you to decide.